guys, welcome back to Basil Designs for another fun tutorial. I haven't posted a tutorial in a long time. In fact, I really haven't posted very many videos in a while. I don't know, I've kind of went through some kind of crafting funk, I guess you could say, or I haven't been motivated to do much crafting. Keep in mind though, this is a hobby for me. I am a full-time nurse. I'm also a mom, and I am in school for my master's program, so I do have a lot going on. This is just something that I enjoy doing on the side. But it is almost Halloween time, and you can't have Halloween without some kind of fun craft. So I thought that I would make a set of coasters. Now, in my house, you might not believe it, because I sell coasters and I design them and I love making them. I didn't have a set for our house, for myself. So I finally made some. I found some adorable napkins at a store called Pop Shelf, and these super cute ones right here. And that kind of inspired me to make a set of Halloween coasters out of the napkins, and they turned out super cute. So this is what I have as part of my Halloween decor, is these cute coasters. So I thought, why not show you guys how to make these simple coasters. Now, you can use any design as long as you find a napkin that you like. So I have some cute ones. This cute ghost with a candle. Cute little Halloween characters. Wouldn't be Halloween without something gory and kind of scary. So this set, and then it says do not enter. Cute pumpkins, cute little pumpkins and skulls, and then also these spider webs. Now I actually made a set using this, and it turned out pretty cute. These ones right here. So that's what I figured we would do today for the tutorial, because it is an easy project. And it is something that even a beginner that is just getting into learning resin can do. So let's talk about molds first. Now, the kind of mold that I tend to like to use is the coaster molds that have a rim, this rim right here. Now, the reason why I like to use these is because it'll keep your glass from slipping when it's on the table, just in case the bottom of it gets kind of wet. Now, I do put cork on the bottom of my coasters, but just in case some condensation gets in the coaster, it won't slide off. Now, I do still like to use my regular coaster molds just like this, but keep in mind these do not have a rim. Okay, something else is if you do use the rimmed coasters, depending on the type of pour you do, whether you want a different color on the edge versus on the inside, it's going to be a little bit more of a process versus just pouring it into these. And you'll see what I mean when we actually get into pouring the coasters. So with that, let's talk resin. My favorite brand of resin is Let's Resin, the Let's Resin products. In fact, I have a lot of Let's Resin products, but I tend to buy mine in the half-gallon jugs. That way they don't take up too much space, especially if I'm storing it for a little while. But I have noticed that during my crafting funk, when my resin has sat for a little while, it didn't yellow. Let's Resin has not yellowed on me, but some of the other brands that I have tried, in fact, they did yellow, and I'll show you what I mean. Now, I'm not going to show you the brand that yellowed, but I will show you the bottle. So this is the bottle that yellowed, and you can tell because look at that. Now, I am not going to use this for any kind of clear project because I don't want the yellow to show. I would probably use it if I'm going to color my resin and do some kind of pour that way, where it'd be an all solid color. Otherwise, this is pretty much kind of just went to waste, to be honest with you. Okay, so we talked about molds, we talked about the resin. I'm going to go ahead and get everything kind of set up and started, and then we will go through the tutorial. Okay, so I will show you the first thing that I do is I get my napkins prepped. So I have some circles kind of already ready to go for you. So what I have done with my molds is I have created a template. This is just out of cardstock. This works perfect for this mold and also for this mold. So what I do is unfold the napkin. I must have already cut this one, but what you can do is, depending on the color, and if you do it on the white side, if it's on the white side, you can just get a pencil and you can trace it. And then cut your circle out. And then once it's cut, all you have to do is separate the linings from your napkin. This one has 2, and then you'll have the paper, the actual part that goes into the resin. So that's what I have done with these. And as you can see here, this napkin that I got, that I had showed you just a minute ago, that I got from Pop Shelf, super cute napkins, but when you unfold them, it has, this is how it looks. So what I had decided to do was choose the part that I wanted on my napkin, right? So you could do essentially, I didn't want to leave any of the gold out. So I did mine more here, where I could capture some of the roses and a little bit of the candle and the butterfly. And then I thought for the other ones, it'd be really cool to capture the corner. So I did something similar to this. So this is how they look. And then, so this would be this set, which is what we are going to make today. Now, I also thought we would go ahead and make a set of regular coasters, and I think I'm gonna do one of each just to see. So I've also cut out a design that says "Help Us." This one, "No One Leaves." I had cut cute little Halloween characters, and then also some spider webs. But I think we're gonna do one of each for the other set. I think this is what we are gonna do, just so you can kind of see the difference. So once you have your napkins prepped and you decide which ones you're gonna use, it's time to clean your molds. Now, I use a leveling table because my work surface, my desk space here, isn't 100% level, and this is definitely a must to ensure that your projects are turn out level. So I have also posted a link to my resin essentials in my Amazon storefront in the description box, so you can see the leveling tables and then also the molds and stuff that I utilize. Okay, so now it's time to prep your mold. Now, my mold is a little dusty and has some little pieces in it. Now, I do like to wash my molds with soap and water, but then that doesn't always get the little pieces of resin that get stuck on the edges, right? So I like to use some regular old painter's tape, and I will use this to ensure that my mold gets clean. Now, this is a tedious process. This is definitely not my favorite part, but it works. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean my molds, and then we are gonna get our resin prepped, and we'll start. So I was washing my molds. I wanted to show you. So I went ahead and washed this one in particular has sat for a while, and I had collected some dust, so it was time to go ahead and just wash it with some soap and water. Now, keep in mind that you are going to have resin pieces from previous pours that are going to stick on the edges. That's really what you want to try to get off with some tape. That way it doesn't affect your current pour with getting stuck in the edges of your new coasters. Now, something I wanted to show you is you want to keep an eye on your silicone molds, because eventually, I mean, you're only going to get a certain amount of uses out of them. Now, this one I have noticed now has a blemish on the surface. And you probably can't see that, but if there is a blemish on the surface, it will show up on your resin piece. So keep that in mind. I don't know if you for me, maybe marking this coaster with a marker on the edge or something to identify that, hey, this one has a blemish. So maybe it can be utilized for a resin pour that I do upside down. What does that mean? Well, sometimes I'll do certain designs of coasters where the top of my coaster, this part, is where I want it. So I'll pour the bottom first, then the middle layer or whatever, and then the top. And then that way the blemish will actually be on the bottom of the coaster when I demold it. Now for these projects, for this current project that we're going to do, I'm actually pouring my coasters upside down, meaning the bottom right here is going to be the top of my coaster. So you definitely, if you're going to do that, you don't want a coaster mold that is going to have a blemish on it, or you will see it on the top of your surface. Okay, so I wanted to point that out. I went ahead and cleaned this mold with some soap and water, and then now I'm going to go through with my tape and make sure that I don't have any little pieces that kind of got stuck down in there. When you dry your coaster mold, keep in mind that if you dry it with a paper towel, it will leave lint in there or little pieces. That's why the tape comes in handy, to make sure that you get all that off. I have a bunch of little resin pieces down in some of these edges and some of the sides. So this is definitely the tedious part of crafting. It's not, like I said earlier, it's not my favorite, but it is a must if you want your stuff to turn out to be quality. And that's important, especially if you're going to be selling your stuff. Now, personally, I don't like to have any overspill, meaning when I pour my resin into my coasters, I don't like any of it going on the edges, because that's just more of a cleanup. I like my stuff to be clean pours, and sometimes that can be really hard, especially if you're doing an intricate pour into maybe a mold that has a design pattern in it. But there are tricks for intricate pours. You can use syringes, you can use piping bags that you would use for cake decorating. There are methods for that. But yeah, I like clean pours. Now, this one is pretty much done and clean, and I'll keep an eye on it and see if as we go, if I notice something, I will get it out. Now, these ones are a little bit trickier, the ones with the rims, because you have dust and particles that can get down into the rim portion. Now, for those, again, I just use my tape, and then I like to put my tape kind of down in the rim and move it around the edge just to get anything that might have been left in there. But these ones are pretty clean. I used them just recently, so I'm not too worried about these ones. Now, something else to keep in mind when you order molds, again, I got these rimmed ones and my regular coaster ones from Amazon. Sometimes I just don't think the people who package these realize that they probably shouldn't be bent, right? I have gotten this mold in before where they were bent like this and packaged in like an airtight plastic. It is almost impossible for them to get back to being flat. So anytime I get a package in that's a silicone mold that is bent or warped, don't keep it, send it back. You don't want a warped mold because it's going to be impossible, almost impossible for it to get flat or get back to a normal shape. Now you can leave it for a while. It takes a long time, and depending on the temperature, it can go back to normal shape. But if it's something that you want to use pretty quickly, it's not going to happen. So don't hold on to something that you get in the mail that is warped. Definitely return it. Okay, so these are clean. Now it's time to prep our resin. Now for these ones, this is, like I said, going to be a 3-step process. And what I mean by that is I like the edge to be a different color from the background of the coaster. So as you can see here, this one has a black rim, and then there's clear. You can probably see the clear pour. And then on this one, I poured a green color. But for these, we are going to use these napkins in these coasters. I really like maybe the black or even a gold rim would be really nice. But I think I'm just going to go ahead and stick with black. So the first pour for these is going to be getting black in the edges, and that can be pretty difficult too. So we are going to go ahead and mix some resin. For this pour, I would say probably about an ounce, 2 ounces will work for the rims. Now, for the other mold, it's not as much involved. So for this pour, I will pour 1 ounce of clear resin in each one of these, and then we will go ahead and just lay our napkins. But for this one, it's going to take letting the rim color dry and then going in and pouring a clear and then putting our napkins in. So this one's a little bit more involved, but we'll get through it together. So I'm going to go ahead and mix up my resin. Like I said, I'm going to mix 4 ounces, 1 for each one of these, and probably 2, maybe 1 to 2 just in case for these ones. Now, something else I do, if I have any leftover resin, I keep little molds handy, right? Because you don't want resin to go to waste. It can be expensive. So I have like these little skull molds that I pour any of my excess resin into, and these are cute for other craft pieces, or let's just say if you're going to sell them, it'd be cute to have like a little basket of skulls that you could charge maybe like 50 cents per skull. But having extra little handy molds for your leftover resin is pretty important. So I always have these skulls right next to my little workspace. All right, I'm going to go ahead and mix up my resin. Okay, let's talk about essential supplies that we're going to need for this project. Okay, so I have these disposable mixing cups. I have used silicone cups that are reusable, but those are, to me, a nightmare to clean. I mean, I already don't like cleaning my molds, and trying to get the little resin pieces out is a pain. So I definitely don't like the silicone measuring cups. I like to buy these disposable ones. These are 8 fluid ounce cups, and they are in increments of 0.5 all the way up to 8. I like to use these. I also use just your regular old popsicle stick. These are the large ones. I will use smaller ones if I'm doing a smaller pour. I like to have small squares of paper towels available for cleanup. I use 70% alcohol for cleanup only, and then I use my 90% for popping bubbles. I put my 90% in a small squirt bottle. This is what I use. I also have my Let's Resin. We have part A And then I have part B. Again, I don't have a whole lot in these bottles. I'm gonna have to open up some more. But if you're interested in all the supplies that I utilize, I have all of these linked for you in the description box. There's the Amazon storefront that has these supplies that I regularly get. I like the paper towels that are Terra Square. That way it's easier. Something else too that I have found, I also use these little silicone tools to help pop bubbles, scrape the edges, and so forth. I use these for a lot of art projects. Those are also linked. And then I have a candle warmer, and I have an old Corningware soup container that I just use this for resin only. But I have over here off the side of my desk a candle warmer. When I mix my resin, I pour some warm water in this soup Corningware dish that I no longer use, and I put it on that candle warmer. What happens when you mix your resin, and if you set your cup directly into the warm water and let it sit, you'll notice that your bubbles pop and go away, which is essential for making resin projects without a lot of bubbles. So I rely heavily on my little container here of warm water. You don't want it to be too hot, but you definitely want it to be warm. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna mix 5 ounces. So I'm gonna mix 2.5 part A, and then 2.5 of B. And I don't do this by weight. I do this by visualizing it in the cup. I haven't had any problems with my pours being soft or not turning out, so this method works great for me, and using the Let's Resin brand. All right, you can also obviously use your personal protective equipment, which would be gloves and a respirator. I've also linked some of that stuff for you in the Amazon links in the description box. Now I use the 70% also to clean up any resin that might get on my hands. I have a hard time working with gloves, so I choose not to use gloves. Okay, so when I mix my resin, I mix it for 3 minutes, and I keep my popsicle stick straight down into the resin, and I try to scrape the sides as I go. I don't mix it too fast or you will make a lot of bubbles. I have a little Amazon Echo Dot that I use in my craft room when I want to listen to music, but I will also tell Alexa to set a timer for me for 3 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead, and at this point I will speed up the video for you, but I'm going to sit here and mix this for 3 minutes. Okay, so my resin has been mixed for 3 minutes. I don't see any swirl, so it looks like it's fully incorporated. But there are just a little bit of bubbles, and I can actually adjust the camera so you can see them. And you can see there are a little bit of bubbles, not a whole lot. But this is where me putting it in my little container of warm water will help get rid of some of those bubbles. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and put it over. We're gonna let it sit in the warm water for just a little bit. And then I'm gonna get my surface ready for our pour. Now to pour the rim into these coasters, you want to avoid getting it on the edge as much as possible. It is very hard to do. Something you could use are these little, like medicine cups, but they have a little handle and a little teeny pour spout. You could use these if you think that your hand is steady enough. You could use piping bags. You could also use just little regular medicine cups, whatever you think is going to work best for you. I'm probably going to use a piping bag. It drives me insane when I get the resin on the edges, because you want to try to avoid that. And then that's more cleanup for you. Once you've poured the rim layer and you go into your next step, is you want to make sure you remove those little pieces. So I'm going to get that ready. I like to use, for my solid colors, if I am doing a black, I want my resin to be black. Now, you can buy black resin from Let's Resin. If you're interested in that, like I said again in my description, I do have a link for 10% off using my coupon code for Let's Resin brand products. But I'm going to go ahead and use this Liquitex. It's fluid acrylic paint. This is how I get my black to be really black. And that's what I'm going to use for the trim or the rim of these coasters. Okay, so our resin is almost ready to be pulled out of the water, and we're about ready to go ahead and pour. So I'm just taking a look to make sure that while we were doing all that, no dust has fallen down into my coaster mold, and I don't see any. So what I did is I got a piece of wood, that way I can transfer this easy over to my drying table, because we're going to need the leveling table to work on our other coasters. So we're going to pour these ones first, because they're going to take less time, right? Once we pour our resin into each of these and we place our napkins, it's just a matter of just letting it sit. And then the ones that we're going to work on and color the black for our trim are the ones that are going to take longer. So we want to get the one out of the way that's quicker first, and that's what we're going to do. So I have it on a piece of wood here, that way I can easily move it off of my leveling table. If not, then I would be trying to carry it, and you don't want you don't want to mess up your coasters by doing that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take out my cup from the water, and then I'm going to dry it off just to make sure that I don't get any water in my resin. And now my resin is pretty clear, hardly any bubbles. So the first thing I do, and I'm going to work one at a time, I'm going to spray my 90% alcohol solution into my coaster. I'm going to take one of my little silicone tools, and I'm just going to go around the edge. Hopefully that will keep us from getting any bubbles stuck in the edge. Now I am going to pour 1 ounce into each. I'm going to set it down and make sure that I've poured 1 ounce exactly. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the next one. Pour my alcohol spray, or spray my alcohol in there. Go around the edge with my silicone tool. And then I'm going to pour 1 ounce. Okay, so before I lay my napkins in, I'm going to go ahead and spray it all with my alcohol spray. And what that does is that pops any bubbles that are on the surface. And then I'm going to take my silicone tool and I'm going to go around the edge of each one. just to make sure I'm getting any bubbles that like to sit in the edges. Clean off my tool. And then this is the point where I would be watching it to see if there's any dust that might have fallen in it. Now, what I have learned is best, it's almost impossible not to have dust in my house, no matter how much I clean. And we, also have a cat, so I'm trying to make sure there's no cat hair that's been floating in the air. Toothpick, using a toothpick to get any little pieces of dust off your surface seems to work the best, at least for me. Okay, looks pretty good. Now it's time to lay our napkin circles. And I have decided to do one of each design so we can see how they turn out. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna lay the first one, which is that cute little ghost holding a candle. I'm gonna put him upside down. And I'm gonna start by kind of making him like a taco. And putting him straight down and then letting the edges go. And you'll see how the resin absorbs into that napkin. We're gonna do our next one with these cute little Halloween characters. This one. And then finally, our spider webs. Now, what you do not want to do is you do not want to go and start pushing it down. You do not want these napkins being uneven in your resin piece, because if you go to push it down, then resin's going to start to pour up on top of it, and then you could have it to where the napkin's kind of uneven. But if you do notice that there's a part that has not absorbed in your napkin, you can very easily, with your toothpick, dab it so the resin will absorb into it. You can see here, there's still a couple little white spots. I can see that the resin has not absorbed into that area yet. You have to be very careful, but you do not want to push hard, or you will actually push your napkin down into the piece. Okay, now this one is pretty much done. We are gonna let this resin cure. I'm going to use my board to transfer this over to my drying table, and then I'm gonna put something over the top to protect it. Okay, so now we have about 1 ounce left in our cup. Now this is what I want to use to put around the trim of these coasters. So what I'm gonna do is I have, again, my Liquitex black fluid acrylic paint. I'm not gonna put a whole lot. I put just a couple of drops. Now I'm gonna stir it. So I don't see any little paint swirls anymore. I want to make sure it's completely incorporated. Now, if you guys have any questions or want to see something different, drop me a comment in the comment box. I would love to hear from you guys. Again, all of the supplies that I am using are linked in my Amazon storefront. That is in the description for you. And don't forget to check out the Let's Resin page and see what products they also have holiday items that they release each holiday, and they have some pretty cool Halloween pumpkins and ghosts. You guys should definitely check those out. Now, you can check your stick to see if that's dark enough for you or not. I think it's perfect. So what I'm gonna do now is I have just a regular piping bag. I'm gonna grab one of my other empty cups. I'm gonna put my piping bag into it. And I'm going to pour my resin down in it. Scrape the edges. You don't want any of your resin going to waste. If you have any little jewelry molds, those are perfect for your little resin leftovers. You can pour them into little earring molds. Okay, I reuse my popsicle sticks. All you have to do is wipe them off with a paper towel and some alcohol. I just got that on my hands. So I'm gonna get another paper towel. Okay. And then I just clean my popsicle sticks really good, and then I will reuse it. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and toss this cup. Now, this is ready. Okay, so I'm just gonna make sure it gets all down into the bottom of the piping bag. And then I'm going to twist. Okay, now for these molds, I'm gonna put a piece of tape to hold my piping bag in place. Okay, for these ones, you wanna double check to make sure there isn't any dust, anything down in there that you can see. And again, kind of the same process that we did with the other coasters. Spray your alcohol down in it and then go along the edges. Now these ones can be tricky because I have had them to where bubbles will form, and it's really difficult to get a bubble off the edge of the coaster. For instance, right here, I don't know if you can see that, but there was a bubble that had formed in that trim. You definitely want to avoid that if at all possible. So that's where the alcohol comes in handy. I'm just kind of rotating around, and then I'm going to tap out that excess alcohol. Okay, now I'm going to trim the edge, and then I'm going to carefully squeeze this resin into the trim while turning my coaster. Now I am not going to fill this all the way up to the top of that trim, because when I go to scrape to help try to get the bubbles out, I don't want it getting up on the edges. Okay, so that one is gonna sit. And now I'm gonna do the same with this one, working one at a time. Okay, so now this is the point where I'm gonna get a toothpick. Now be careful when using toothpicks in your mold because they can scratch your mold. I'm gonna go ahead and spray the edges. And I'm gonna start with the one that I did first. And I'm just gonna go around the edge. With my toothpick. Then I'm gonna lift it up. I'm going to wipe it off. And then I'm gonna do the inner edge. I'm gonna get a little bit of alcohol on my toothpick. Now if I had filled this rim all the way up when I'm doing this, it would go all over the edge. That's why I didn't fill it up all the way. Okay. Now I'm gonna move on, doing the same process. I'm gonna spray with some alcohol first, get a little bit on my toothpick, and then go around the edge. I am not pushing hard at all. I do not want to scrape my mold. Then I'm gonna lift it up and then do the inner edge. Okay, now this is the point where if you want to add more, you can. You just have to be very careful not to push down into what you've already poured. Okay, so that's probably all I'm gonna fill it up to. It's definitely my comfort level because I don't want it going over. And like I said before, I'm gonna use these little skull molds for my leftover. So I can feel the resin in my hand, and this piping bag getting kind of hot, so I might go ahead and pour them in here. And I don't think I'm gonna pour all the way because I like to do different colors in my skulls. Okay, easy cleanup, just throw that away. Okay, so now we have to let this dry enough to where when we pour our clear, it's not gonna incorporate into the clear. That's the tricky part. So we're gonna let it sit. I'm probably gonna let it sit for about 6 hours to where it's pretty solid. It's formed up enough. And then we'll do like we did with the other coasters. We'll go ahead and pour a layer of clear on top, and then we'll set our napkins in. So I'm gonna go ahead and let these sit, and I will cover them, and then I'll be back for the next step. Hey guys, welcome back. So it's later on, same day, probably about 7 hours later. It's evening time for me. The black rims that we poured earlier, they are solid enough that we can pour a clear layer on top. So I went ahead and mixed 6 ounces of resin in my cup, and it's currently in my water warmer. What we're going to do, we're going to pour 1 ounce of clear in each of these, and then we're going to put our napkins in. And then I'm just going to save 2 ounces of resin for the ones that we did earlier, the ones that we did first. And so while my resin is warming up, as you can see here, we have a couple little drip marks, little teeny. I'm just going to clean some of that up while we wait on our resin to get warm. Hopefully these will turn out good and not have bubbles. You can see through these, so if you turn it over and look, you can see if you have any bubbles in the rim. And yep, there's one there. And I think on this one, I saw one too. So we'll have to do a little bit of touch-up work afterwards to fix those. Okay. So I'm just gonna use my tape to get the little spots of over pour. And then any dust or anything like that that might have landed on my coaster, even though they were covered. Now, there's a little bit, you guys aren't going to be able to see it, but there's some little spots right here on the edge. Be careful when you're trying to get these with your tape, because you don't want to break the seal of the resin that you have already poured, because if you do break the seal, then any new resin you pour on top could potentially seep through the side and underneath. So I hold it from this side just to make sure I'm not popping that seal to get any spots that might be on the edge or on the sides. And by doing the piping bag, we really did save a lot of cleanup at this point, because we don't have any that really came up over here on the middle part, and very, very little that ended up on the sides here. So I do recommend, if you are doing the coasters that have the little edge to it and you want to do a different color for the trim, definitely use something to help make it easier to get it in there, because it will save you some time and a lot of cleanup. Okay, so I'm gonna take a look at my resin here and see how it looks. We still have some bubbles, so I'm gonna let it sit just a little bit longer, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get my other supplies out so we can be ready to pour our final layer on the other coasters that we poured earlier. Okay, so while we wait, let's take a look at these. These look like they are pretty good. They are also, they're not fully cured, so you can kind of push in on the resin a little bit. So, but it is enough that we can pour our final layer on top of these, and that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna go ahead and just pour white, and I'll show you. I use Less Resin Ocean White pigment. I have tried many things to get my resin super white and very bright, and I haven't figured it out yet. This is the only thing that I have found that will allow my resin to be very bright white. And it doesn't take a lot, it really doesn't. And this is perfect for your ocean resin pieces, for your waves. I really like the Let's Resin Ocean White. So instead of doing different colors, which you could, I'm just, for the sake of this tutorial, I am going to just do white as a background. That way too, it'll help the other colors in the napkins pop. So I'll be excited to see how these turn out. Okay, let's take a look here. Our resin looks like it's ready. So I'm just gonna wipe off the cup. And then, all right, we're gonna do similar to what we did earlier, working one at a time. I am going to spray with my 90% alcohol. And I'm gonna pour 1 ounce into each. Okay, and for any cleanup, again, I just use a paper towel and then 70% isopropyl alcohol. I'm gonna clean up the rim of my cup so it doesn't drip down anymore. And then wipe off my leveling table. Okay, so I have 1 ounce in each of these resin coasters. And I'm just gonna kind of look at them, spray some of my alcohol on top just to ensure any bubbles are popped. And I'm looking at them and I don't see any bubbles. But it's not a bad idea to use a toothpick, spray it with a little bit of alcohol, and then just go along the edge. And try not to, if you're able to avoid it, try not to pick up your toothpick and put it back down in there, because then that's just gonna drag more air into your edge. So I'm just gonna go around. And being careful not to dig down into my black layer that I had poured earlier. Okay, I'm gonna give it another spray. And then I'm gonna look to make sure there is no trapped dust or hair, anything like that. If I were to see anything, using the toothpick seems to work best, but I don't see anything. All right, so now we are ready to put in our napkin pieces. So what we're gonna do, like we did before, taco method. Hold it up like a taco, place the middle down, and then release your sides. Okay, and then we should see our resin absorb. These white parts should go away. And the good thing about the napkins is you don't really have to worry about any air being trapped underneath it because the resin absorbs through the napkin. I have made resin projects with regular paper or cardstock, and that can be quite difficult because the resin will change the color of your paper, and if you, let's just say you were to laminate your paper,
It's easy to get bubbles trapped underneath and stuff like that. So I have found that napkins are by far the easiest to do this with. Okay, so this is done. So this is just a matter of letting it sit. And what I did not do is get my wood so I could transfer it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. Okay, so I have my wood here. So I'm just gonna be very careful and pick them up because we're gonna work on the next set of coasters that we started. Okay, so those are on the drying table, and now it's time to work on these. Now, I can see, and I don't know if you can, but you see these little drip marks right here on the edge of the coaster. I'm gonna try to clean those up as best as possible. You might be able to see these ones because these are kind of big right here. So I'm gonna take my tape. Now what I was talking about earlier is trying to clean these up without breaking the seal. And what I mean by that is the seal that you have created with the resin that you poured earlier and the, I'll zoom in a little bit, but the resin and the silicone mold. Now that is so easy to do. Because this next layer that we're gonna pour is gonna be bright white, you definitely do not want it seeping through and underneath. So I'm gonna hold with my fingers the outside of the mold and kind of push towards the tape that I am pushing from this side. And you can see I'm able to get those little resin specks. And I'm gonna try to do that all the way around, but being very careful. I have made the mistake of breaking that seal before, and I had made some really pretty flower coasters, and one of them got ruined because the white seeped underneath and there was really no way to fix it. So learn from my mistakes because I have done it. Okay, so now that my mold edges are good, I'm gonna mix the 2 ounces that I have left with the ocean white that I was telling you about. And again, it doesn't take a whole lot to make this a really bright white. So I do a couple squirts. And then you just want to mix it up really well until you don't see any more of the paint swirl marks in your resin. Now the good thing about this white is it really makes the colors of your napkins pop. Because the napkins absorb the resin, they are kind of see-through, if that makes any sense. So having the white in the background definitely helps. And you see how nice and white that is? Okay. Because we already have 1 ounce in each coaster, and I don't want these coasters to be super big, we're gonna work one at a time, and I'm gonna pour about 1/2 ounce into each. I'm gonna spray as I go. Okay, so that's about 1/2 ounce in each one. Now I'm just gonna carefully kind of spread it out a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and spray with some alcohol. and kind of get the white to flow down. Now my resin's getting thicker because it sat for just a little bit while we were pouring the other coasters. And it will self-level, but I just want to make sure I get all the way around. Okay, now this will, again, self-level, so I'm just going to go ahead and spray it. And then I'm going to let them sit. And then we'll check on them tomorrow. Hey guys, welcome back. So it is the next day, and these coasters that we poured yesterday are done. So what we need to do is add our final layer, which would be a white layer on the back. So I think these are going to turn out fantastic. I went ahead and mixed up some resin, and I have that sitting in my warmer right now. So what we'll do is, while we wait for that, we can work on these ones. These ones are done. I'm sure you guys are excited to see how they turned out. So let's go ahead and pop them out. All right, we'll do one at a time. Oh my gosh, these are super cute. So this one turned out really cute. I can zoom in here for you. So this was that cute little Halloween napkin. Oh, this is our ghost. Now this one looks like it kind of shifted in the mold a little bit, so it wouldn't be a bad idea to cut this one a little bit bigger, but it is super cute. This is our spider web design. That one turned out really cool. I like how it has the white in the background, so it really makes those spider webs and bats pop. And then this one as well also shifted in the mold, it looks like. So lesson learned with these two is to maybe do the circle a little bit bigger. That way it does not shift. So, but I like how, had we done a black background on this one, it probably wouldn't look as good. So the white behind it makes it pop. This one, having the white behind it makes it pop as well. I'm afraid if we did a black background that it would really dull out the the red writing on this napkin, the help us part. But that's okay. So this is how we learn, right? So yeah, these napkins kind of shifted. That is okay. This is definitely cute, and it was the perfect size. And then this one turned out pretty good too. So how do you finish off your coasters? Because there is a sharp edge, and you definitely don't want to sell a coaster that has a sharp edge on it. I have what's called a deburring tool, and this is what I use to go around my edges and trim that sharp portion off. You could use a sandpaper block as well, a sanding block. But I recommend, if you are to sand resin, you wear a mask. You don't want to breathe in the pieces of resin after you sand. So super happy. These are adorable. So I will finish these off later. Now, I am very excited to see these when they're done. So I mixed about 3 ounces of resin. And I'm going to go ahead and pour my white pigment paste. Again, it's the Let's Resin Ocean White. I'm going to mix that up really good so I don't see any swirls of paint anymore. And looking at that, I can still see some swirls. So I'm going to keep mixing. I apologize, you guys, I'm getting over a cold. So my voice still sounds pretty crummy. Now, you can still see it's a little bit translucent, so if you wanted it to be a little bit darker, you would just add more of your white pigment. And I think I'm going to do that. I want it to be a little bit brighter. I was looking at the Let's Resin website last night. It looks like they are having a Halloween sale on their website. There's 10% off items to include some of your resin starter kits. So if you're new to pouring resin, or maybe you came across this video and want to get into it yourself, Let's Resin has starter kits that come with everything you need to get started. And they are a part of their sale on their website. Now, if you look in the description box of this video, I have included a coupon code, Rachel10, and then also my link to Let's Resin. That way you can get an extra 10% off if you're interested in. But they do have some super cute Halloween molds. They have some ghosts and pumpkins, and they even have little ghosts that are jewelry molds, so you can make some little ghost earrings. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So, like we've done with all of the others, we're going to work one at a time. I'm going to spray it with my 90% alcohol spray. And then pour my white in to enough to where it covers it. Okay, and then we'll move on to the next one. Spray it. I'm putting a little less than an ounce in these. I only mixed 3 ounces. We just want enough to cover the background. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep an eye on these, make sure no dust settles down into it. Pop any bubbles, and then once I think they're good, I'm going to cover them. I will go ahead and cover, and then we will demold these tomorrow. I am excited to see how they turn out. This method is really good for any of the holidays because you can find the paper napkins on sale, especially when the holiday is close to being over. I know Hobby Lobby has quite a few paper napkins, especially around Christmas time. You can find them in the Christmas aisle. And if you're able to catch it when it's a 50% off sale going on, you can stock up on those napkins and then use them to make cute little Christmas or holiday coasters. Again, I do recommend these the coasters that have the edge on them. I think they are perfect because they don't let your cup slide off, and I like the way they look. They actually look more like a coaster. Now these are definitely okay. The only thing is just worrying about your cup sliding off the edge. But I haven't seen that be an issue. I have made these for some of my family members, and they do use them, and they are good, and they hold up perfect. But I don't know, I kind of favor the ones with the rim. But when using the ones without, just make sure that you cut your circle big enough. So these ones were perfect. You weren't able to see an edge on them. Unfortunately, I must have cut these ones a little bit too small, which is a shame because I really like this napkin. In fact, what I'll probably do is make a set of these coasters with this napkin because I think they're adorable. But either way, these are a fun project to do. It's an easy starter project. And then you can get into a little bit more of your complicated items. But we will come back tomorrow and demold these. All right, our coasters are done. So let's see how these guys turned out. I am super excited to see these. I think this napkin that we used in these is by far my favorite. All right, for the big reveal, look at that. Ooh, these even turned out better than the ones I have in my house. I like them. What do you guys think? Here, I can actually zoom in a little bit. Turned out really, really good. This one doesn't have any bubbles around the edges anywhere, so this one turned out really good. This one has two small little bubble marks right there, but we can fix that with a little bit of some UV resin and just a teeny bit of sanding with a little bit of polishing. This one looks really good. We have just a teeny little bubble mark, which I don't think probably we would need to fix. And then this one. So you guys, this is such an easy project. Like I said, you really don't have to have much resin expertise to do the napkin coasters. You just need to find some napkins you like and some cute coaster molds. The ones that we made yesterday without the rims, they turned out super cute as well. So it's just a matter of your preference, what you like best. I personally like these rimmed coasters. I think they look better. 2, they're a little bit more functional to use as coasters, but that is all up to you. They are not that much more expensive, honestly, than the coaster mold that I showed you without the rims, the ones that we used for these ones. Either way, though, they both work. Unfortunately, the ones that we made, the ones that turned out pretty good. The other ones that have where the napkin kind of shifted on us, these two, resin is a learning process. You guys have been doing resin for a while now, and there's still times where stuff like this happens. So it is what it is. In fact, if you're interested in doing resin projects and selling them at like a craft fair or something like that, you could have a basket of your oopsie projects that you could sell at a discounted price. So this might be something that I would include in the oopsie project. I definitely would not get rid of this by any means. Now, something else to consider with these ones that do not have the trim around the edge, like these coasters, you can actually go in and paint the edge of your coasters. In fact, I have these Krylon pins that I use quite often on some of my resin projects that I do for the edges of things, but you could go in and paint the edge of these coasters. So hopefully you enjoyed the tutorial. Maybe it helped you out a little bit. And again, I will link in the description box the where I got my Amazon storefront that has these molds in it, and also my other mold as well. And a lot of the resin projects I use, they will be also linked in the description box. So I also have included in the description box the link for Let's Resin. That's the type of brand I use for these coasters. Again, I've used Let's Resin for a while. I've even, when I went through my crafting funk and didn't craft anything for a couple months, my Let's Resin brand stayed perfectly clear. It's a great product. And look, these pieces turned out really good. In fact, I've even poured some of my deeper molds. Like this is one of my skeleton that I poured. You guys, there's like no bubbles in this at all. And this is a deeper pour. So this is a two-part pour. In fact, this is one that I made where you can shake the head and you see the swirl of glitter liquid in there. So I'm telling you, Let's Resin brand is an excellent product. But anyways, I did post the link in the description box for you with a coupon code as well. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you want to see something else or want to see a different tutorial, leave me a comment. I need to know what you guys want to see, what you guys need help with, or virtually anything, actually. It gives me ideas for these videos. I do enjoy teaching. That's kind of a passion of mine. So just leave me a shout out, a comment, and let me know. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and follow.